And to wrap up the day, we got a little potpourri for 500, because we got a couple little stories here that don't quite warrant the time allotted to them for their own individual videos, but you know what? They deserve coverage, because one is creepy and the other one is just, you love to see politicians doing work, not just sitting on their hands collecting a paycheck, just waiting for campaign season to come around in order for them to actually do something. Once again, Josh Hawley drawing up some legislation. We covered it yesterday or the day before with him, Cruz, Lee signing that, or drafting the piece of legislation, the bill that would revoke the antitrust provisions for Major League Baseball. It's not going to go anywhere. This one, once again, I don't know what kind of legs it has. I don't imagine that Republicans have their interest in right now, and who are keeping the Democrats in business. Oh, damn, I spoiled it. But Senator Hawley's bill to break up big tech corporations praised and panned on the right. I'd imagine we probably know who's going to be on the panned side, but we'll keep an open mind, I'm sure. A legislative reform proposed by Senator Josh Hawley of the great state of Missouri to crack down on mergers and acquisitions by mega corporations and strengthen antitrust enforcement. Good. This guy, I was going to say, Josh Hawley has been banging the drum against big tech. And okay, Twitter is just kind of fucking fumbling around in the dark in order to try to find their footing, to figure out how to monetize their shitty dying platform. You got Jack over there with his beard dipped in the Twitter pool, and in the Cash App pool, and in the Signal pool. I forget which one he has. He's got his encrypted communication app of choice. I'm pretty sure it's Signal, but it doesn't really matter. And then you got Facebook across the aisle, who has bought up Oculus, the Oculus Rift VR company. WhatsApp, Instagram, literally making it so that there's just future. Google, who has the top 2 websites on the planet, Google search engine, and then the second largest search engine, YouTube. Apple, who is just waiting, who is lurking, has a ton of cash, and they haven't been making any other accusations. Do we need to explain? And then you got Facebook, and then, a distant fifth, you have Twitter. But it's getting to a point where these corporations have way too much power. And just going, a private company can do whatever it wants, has long-term ramifications. And we're starting to deal with just the tip of it right now. And y'all know how that conversation ends up ending. Starts with just the tip, and then you get all fucking 14 inches of it. But let's see what this is all about. A small group of woke mega corporations control the product Americans can buy, the information Americans can receive, and the speech Americans can engage in. Normally, I'd like to nitpick in the fact that he implied that these corporations are woke, or tried to use that as just a buzzword, but Hawley has a pretty good grasp on the society at large. He's not one of these seem cooler than they actually are. No, Hawley's been pretty good on this kind of stuff, so I'll let it slide. These monopoly powers control our speech, our economy, our country, and their control has only grown because Washington has aided and abetted their quest for endless power. Well, big tech, big banks, big telecom, big pharma gobbled up more companies and more market share. They gobbled up our freedoms and competition. Yeah, big pharma's the one who everybody was talking about prior to the pandemic, and then kind of had a soft spot for while they were developing their vaccines. I'm talking specifically about the left right now. It was like, oh, down with big pharma. Until they want to shove something in your arm, then it's all about inject me harder, daddy. Second dick reference in this video. We're on to a good start. And gobbled up. Okay, that's a third. American consumers and workers have paid the price. Woke corporations, okay, slow it down a little bit, pal, want to run the country, and Washington is happy to let them, because who gets paid by these big corporations? It's time to bust them up and restore competition. Hawley's trust busting for the 21st Century Act. Think of something just a little bit easier to say, pal. Ban all mergers and acquisitions by companies with a market capitalization exceeding $100 billion. Huh, interesting to just put a cap on something. Yeah, okay. This provision would bar Google's recent purchase of the Waze travel app that was then incorporated into the tech giant's Maps app. Interesting. empower the FTC to designate dominant digital firms exercising dominant market power in particular internet markets, which would be prohibited from buying out potential competitors. This provision would not allow Facebook to buy up digital startups that could become social media rivals. As much as more government is not the solution to a problem, but rather exacerbates it, or at least tends to, I would rather have the United States government look after something than, say, Chinese government. I think we can agree that that's probably a better outcome for everybody involved. Dominant digital firms would be excluded from giving priority in search results to favored sites without explicitly disclosing the practice. As a result, Google would have to disclose that it gives priority in its search results to its own reviewers over those of Yelp. Exactly. Yeah, I think that would be sensible if you're the world's largest search engine and there is nobody even close. As much as I love DuckDuckGo, you talk to the regular person on the street and they'll think that that is just a child's game that they play in gym class. Reform the Sherman and Clayton Acts to enable enforcement officials to use direct evidence of anti-competitive conduct to support an anti-claim trust. Delicious. Doing so will allow enforcers more effectively to pursue the breakup of dominant firms and prevent antitrust cases from devolving into battles between economists. Exactly, because there was a Supreme Court case that was up there. It was Bell Atlantic versus Twombly. I do believe I'm getting the other name right. Or they tried to break up Bell. This was prior to it actually being broken up. But they couldn't prove that they were acting as a monopoly. There was no pieces of hard evidence that could prove that all of the corporations across the country were acting together in a malicious fashion in order to manipulate, control the market, because all of these discussions take place off the record, behind the scenes, and you can't prove it, okay? And that's what needs to be reformed. It's not too dissimilar to the Section 230 debate, where you have a piece of legislation that was drafted and it has outlasted its original scope of service. And the Sherman and Clayton Acts, they're approaching 100 years old at this point, if it's not longer than that. Replace the outdated numerically focused standard for evaluating antitrust cases, once again, another good thing, which allows giant conglomerates to escape scrutiny by focusing on short-term considerations with a standard emphasizing the protection of competition in the United States. Nothing wrong with that. Clarify that vertical mergers are not exempt from antitrust scrutiny. Yup. Two companies of similar size doing a similar thing coming together. I do believe that that's what that means. Drastically increase antitrust penalties by requiring companies that lose federal antitrust suits to forfeit all their profits resulting from monopolistic. Yeah, there should be punishment for these activities, because how could you properly quantify what these other companies that were squeezed out by the monopolies in their field, how much money they have been cost because of this type of behavior? So I don't see anything wrong with that. Let's see who's been praising this, okay? The Internet Accountability Project founder and president Mike Davis. Senator Hawley's trust busting for the 21st Century Act is the type of bold leadership and smart legislation this country so desperately needs. Senator Hawley's Commerce Bill introduces the hard reset. Thank God it's not a great reset. Congress must enact to save the free market from abusive trillion-dollar big tech monopolists and other giant woke corporations attempting to exert too much power and control in our lives for far too long. Through antitrust amnesty and Section 230 immunity, Google has been allowed to exert too much influence through its control over the internet. Microsoft was busted up for far less than this, if you do recall. Along with Amazon, Facebook, and Twitter, they continue to censor alternatives, violate our privacy, and crush the competition at all costs and without consequence. Very good, very good. Here's a reservation leveled. I agree with Senator Hawley's heartburn with many of these business decisions of Google, Facebook, and Twitter, yet I believe the busting up these companies flies in the face of traditional free market conservatism. It's dead, Brian Darling. Don't you get it? Don't you get it? These companies have become too big. They've become too influential in your day-to-day practices, okay? That's the wit and reflection you'd get out of a fucking libertarian on Twitter saying my private company can do whatever it wants. Darling, former senior counsel to Senator Rand Paul. I can see why he's former Council, and former Senate liaison for the Heritage Foundation, is a founder and president of Liberty Government Affairs. Well, fucking stay there. You can keep your nose out of it, you dummy. Similarly, David Williams, president of the Taxpayer Protection Alliance, I'd like to do more digging into him. His legislation, like most populist policies, will royally backfire. How so? The ability for firms to merge, acquire, and invest fuels economic dynamism and competition. Yeah, that's why there's the $100 billion cap on it, tard. Senator Hawley's approach is misguided and bizarrely invites more government regulation. Reforming the government regulation because it's long outlived its intended purpose. But thanks for your fucking 70 IQ take, moron. Go back to bilking taxpayers, I suppose. Give our best to Rick Wilson over there at the fucking Lincoln Institute. Lincoln Project, sorry. But speaking of degenerates, New York parents files lawsuit to marry adult child. That headline doesn't tell the disgusting, disturbing story. I found it hilarious, but you guys' mileage might vary on this one. But, yeah, that slippery slope argument, right? Remember, it was just people who love each other. They just want to get married. They just want to have all the rights that everybody else does, right? And now it's a fucking parent wanting to marry one of their children. Oh. Can somebody cite me a reason, like a good reason why we shouldn't just nuke New York City? Just asking. A New York parent who wishes to marry their own adult child filed a lawsuit to overturn the incestuous practice, saying the matter should be held up to the individual. Okay. I might have a hot take at the end of this. Though the enduring bond of marriage to persons, whatever relationship they might otherwise have with one another, can find a greater level of expression, intimacy, and spirituality. The parents, who seek to remain anonymous, for good reason, you fucking creeps, argued in the Manhattan federal court claim filed on April Fool's Day. And no, it's not a joke. The proposed spouses are adults, the filing continued, and the proposed spouses are biological parent and child. That statement has launched 1,000 porn parodies. The proposed spouses are unable to procreate together. Good, because I don't want to have to be paying for another fucking flipper kid out here. According to the New York law, incest is a third-degree felony. With a penalty of up to 4 years in prison. Weirdly enough, completely served while you're just being hung by your genitalia. Incestuous marriages are also considered void for good reason, and spouses are punished with a fine of up to 6 months in jail. Yeah, but doesn't separation make the heart grow fonder? So, I guess you'd just be doing them a favor. Marriage licenses in New York City require potential spouses to write down their birth parents and sign off on others, saying there's no legal impediments to marriage according to the Office of the City Clerk's marriage license page. The parents asking a federal judge to declare the incest laws unconstitutional and unenforceable in the case, which the lawsuit cites as falling under the category of parent and child non-procreatable couples. And then it's got the case number at the bottom. First of all, I wish that both of these people would just get thrown into a vat of acid and we'd never have to see this ever again. But the reason that I kind of have a hot take on this lawsuit is if it can just get the government out of the marriage business, that would be fucking wonderful for everybody. Because, okay, I've been fairly staunch against children for a very long time. Mostly it comes back to the fact that a guy always gets his shit pushed in when it comes to the courts. Yes, you can always cite the Adele, but I can just fucking walk down the street and point at about 10 or 15 different houses where a guy's ended up having to fucking pay for some bitch's lifestyle that she's become accustomed to. But if you get the state, if this somehow, I'm not saying that it would, but I'm just saying that if there's a justice out there that wants to outline the government getting out of the marriage business as much as a certain justice wants to get 230 removed, then we'd be on to something. And if we got to go through the avenue of incest relationships in order to get that accomplished, I'm not too terribly against that. In this case, incest would be wincest. Because marriage should just be between two people, and in this case, whatever degenerate church would decide to marry them, and the government need not apply. And if they want to go out and make, I don't know, little webbed feet Pez dispensers, they can go ahead and fuck until the cows come home. And because they're anonymous, we don't know the size of these people, but I can't imagine that they're appealing on a wide spectrum, emphasis on the wide. But we can be childish with their descriptions and just take our little shots. But that was an unexpected turn of events. But I guess, yeah, two stories that I'm glad it came across. Much like this father to daughter or son to mother. Ugh. And Josh Hawley just, I don't know, just being a fucking solid dude trying to wave the populist banner in the face of a couple of naysayers, and somebody realizes that laws need to be revisited after 100 goddamn years. And with that said, that is all for today, guys. I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.